And a good day to all, a good night as well. This is the Texas Porch, the TexasPorch.com, that Mitch designed website. Get any or all episodes, your choice. Today we begin our special Get to Know You series, sprinkled throughout the rest of the summer and maybe even extended to the fall, at least the first year of the extravaganza, but appropriate with my co-host on the pod today. I think out of the five besties that rotate on the show, I've known him the longest, but my name's JP Heath, by the way. I don't think I did that intro, but you probably know that if you clicked and you're listening and all that stuff. But anyway, we were best men in our weddings, and over a bowl of queso, we reunited. Eagle Scout, taper of ankles, dad, and voted most Texan by yours truly. He'll defend his title at a later date. It is P. Diddy Paul Dunham.
Greetings, sir.
Hey,
nice for being here.
Hey, howdy to you and yours. Thanks for accommodating the blue hair that I am now. Just like to do things early. And I know
the blue plate special, there's nothing wrong with that. Early bird special, whatever it is, man. It's okay.
I'm going to like being old for a number of reasons. You can even say whatever you want, even more, and you can eat early. And in this low-carb life I have, I'm like, man, I just get the eating done with and just be done with it. But so we're starting this series, and I thought, you know what? And it so happened that we could have taped it with Mitch, but he's a dad as well, and he had some soccer duties the next couple of nights. And the first, by the way, Paul, I'm sure you've listened to it already. You listened to it right when it released last night. But Josh and I had the Cowboys pod last night, so people might not be listening to this in consecutive days, but you are a part of Texas Porch podcast history for the first time in our 20 episodes we record on back-to-back days. So you'll tell your grandchildren about this moment in Texas podcast history.
I remember when we went back-to-back.
What's a podcast, Grandpa? They just inject stuff into our brains now.
Like trying to explain a cassette tape or a vinyl record to anybody from a current generation.
So I thought what we'd do in each show might take different formats, but since, you have your best friends like this podcast is, except Kevin. Kevin's a dead last among my best friends. I love him, though. Told him last night. So people think, you must hate Kevin. He's Kevin. So as one of the originators, really, if we're being honest, probably what was the tiebreaker, because I was going to vote myself most Texan, but I thought that would have been too sanctimonious. But you really termed, for those that did not listen to the first couple shows, recommend it going back to the two-parter, We're Still Friends, but you kind of termed the term The Porch. Turned into my radio show when I was dominating small market East Texas. So how does it feel all these years later? You're a part of that, I don't know, part of that history or not. But seriously, we termed it all those, and just give a refresher for those that don't remember just how the whole porch essence started way back over there on Bodark Street in Commerce, America.
Yeah, so it's just like we talked about in the first things that you mentioned. We'd sit around, we'd solve the world's problems, we'd try to hydrate ourselves as best we could with whatever was available.
Drinks of choice, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And we just, it's sitting around, it's enjoying some music. It was before anybody had a Spotify playlist or anything. You had to go make a mix CD or something, and pick the Robert Earl Keen songs you like or whatever it was. You introduced me to Robert Earl Keen, never heard of him before. We started porching and whatnot. And, he has a song called The Porch, all the things. But yeah, sitting around either on your porch at the apartment or then other places that we were, squatting or whatever we had somehow acquired a space, even on my front driveway a few times, just hanging out, enjoying times, talking about old things, and then rehashing some of the stories we'll probably get to tonight. In real time as they were happening or as they had just happened and discussing them. It was like we may have mentioned before, I don't think, but, you and I were pre-K, preschool, little art kindergarten, or whatever it was called, all the way through. Same college, same everything. And somewhere along the way, we kind of did our own thing a little bit. Not that we weren't friends, because we're still friends.
We're still friends, yes.
Yeah, it was just it was one of those things, just kind of different circles. We got busy. You were doing journalism and radio, TV, and I was doing trainer stuff, and we just kind of found that other group of people that we started spending time with or whatnot. And then somehow in college, we just kind of meshed again, I guess. We grew back together. So here we are.
And I remember, since you brought it up, we're both masters of the segue, and we've known each other since, as my mom pointed out a few weeks ago, both of our moms were pregnant together. So really, in utero, that's how far this chemistry goes back, right?
True.
But I remember going, as I helped out, not surprisingly, on the radio side, did some stats with sports information, keeping stats of the game, but then later I helped out doing the broadcast of the game and the greatness of 88.9 KETR. It's my Matt Minke impersonation. Great pipes there, Matt. But I remember talking. I mean, we always talked, and we were always really good friends. But I remember talking like, hey, like, what are we doing? Let's go out and eat dinner. Do you remember that? I'm not holding you to the CIA interrogation lamp, and I'm not going to waterboard you if you don't remember, but do you remember that and how that segued to the Molina's meal for the subsequent bowl of queso that kind of reunited our deep, deep friendship, Paul? And don't you forget it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it was just kind of like, why haven't we hung out in a while, and what happened to us, And there was no falling out. There was no beef. There's no stories that'll be drug up later on that. It was just, it's just the situation of, all right, we've known each other forever. We're still friends, so we can't undo this, but we just didn't hang out much. I hadn't quite gotten hooked into the ticket at that point. You were probably listening to the ticket 24/7.
Radio station in Dallas, for those that somehow don't know.
Yes. The little ticket. But anyway, so I think it's just, we finally bonded back over some good Molina's queso. Gosh, love to have that back someday.
Yeah, Molina's queso, the center of Paul and I, we're about to talk to about one of our 5 stories. I nailed down 5 stories that Paul and I could tell and share with the audience, the dozens and dozens. It's grown from tens and tens to dozens and dozens, Paul. That's how much the Texas Porch podcast is catching on. But also a quick recap of the We're Still Friends story. Now, when we have the get to know episode of Mitch and me, that's the We're Still Friends. Am I remembering that part right? That was me and Mitch that had that encounter they said, no, you're still friends. So we're still friends.
You all had to tell me that story.
Okay.
I know the parties involved, but I was not present for that one.
So the first one I wanted to talk about that I did not prep you beforehand was a phrase that you and I say to each other that I don't think it's come up on the show yet, but it might in the future, is queso on my life. Couldn't even.
Dude, I don't even. So it's such a thing that I don't even know if we can explain it. Because if you're a Texan, or you, at least, we'll even include those that are here and enjoy a good bowl of somewhat melted, seasoned up cheese and other delicious things, melted in a bowl, served with chips, all of the chips. It's just, if you don't put queso on everything, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Like, it just makes everything better. What does it not improve? You can put it on anything. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, outside of dessert items, which we'll get to your cobbler expertise here in a second too. But I mean, queso goes better on everything: tacos, enchiladas, obviously chips. I mean, you could cross cultures. I'm sure it put queso on a bunch of different things. It just queso. It just somehow morphed, like there's different languages and jokes with different friends. You and I started that because I think there was an order, could have been at the greatness of the now defunct Molino's, but it's still a restaurant, Omega's, I believe, in our great, where all this all started in Commerce, America, Texas. But somehow one of us, or maybe it was college or post me moving away from our great hamlet, but somehow the bowl of queso wasn't enough. And then you can't get the enchiladas with the chili or the red sauce, like the chili, the regular enchilada sauce. No, I need more queso.
More.
In fact, put queso on my life. So that's kind of a euphemism when we say, I'm going to go have some queso on my life. Again, this is stupid for anyone listening that's not you and me or maybe our parents. But it's just funny to you and me, and it's always funny that no, that queso is not enough. And in fact, here's another ingredient. I've got to have 9 baskets of chips.
Oh my gosh.
For that queso.
It's a scenario is like, would I ever in good conscience go to the store and purchase 4 like party sized bags of tortilla chips, open them all, sprinkle them on the table in front of me, and then proceed to consume them with everyone around me? Like, no, I wouldn't do that. But would I ask for 6 refills on the chips in front of me?
Of course.
Molina's or wherever? Absolutely. For salsa or whatever else we got.
And then eat the chili, not the chili relleno. I'm not a fan, but chimichanga. That's the term I was fishing for there. But oh man, you cleaned me out already. That's a Mitch term, crossing over. But you cleaned me out there. So that's one funny thing. And I thought the other one, okay, get into what I think is our greatest shtick together, because I'll go on record. Mrs. Texas Porch is not a fan of this character, okay? But this character was born.
Reasons that will become clear in a minute.
Yeah. Ridiculous guy shtick, ridiculous guy humor. But poor planning guy. He was born when Paul, I think what I remember, again, not to segue into another topic and a whole nother subject, only tense if you make it tense, but Mitch and Paul were both my co-best men at my wedding, even though they really didn't do anything separate because I didn't have this huge bachelor party or drinking after, nothing like that. But anyway, so poor planning guy basically makes every wrong decision in a stressful situation, or he always chooses the wrong thing. Is that a good elevator speech for poor?
Absolutely a good start. Yes, you're laying the foundation well.
Okay, so this started. Here's what I remember. The day of my wedding, I thought, we're pulling around the corner, just down actually from our Piney Woods house right now, down the corner, the church I got married, really just a few hundred yards down the street. And I remember looking across this Lowe's parking lot and thinking, you know, it'd be really funny right now. I don't know if you were driving your truck or I said,
we were in yours.
You know, it'd be really funny. What if we pulled over and I just walked to the church from here, like half a mile, I think. Yes. How poor planning would that be? Because
just so disheveled and just hot.
It was June or June wedding, sweaty. Yeah. Wouldn't have access to a shower before the biggest moment in your life. And I don't know why, but that stuck with us. And we always have hypothetical situations of just text, hey, PPG. And like real things we did, or at least me, like I can't think of any offhand, but just, and I'm a bountiful supplier of these types of moments and JP moments like we talked about in another episode. So again, you're making me cry, laugh again, but it's just between you and me, it's just like, okay, PPG, poor planning guy, always makes the wrong decision at the wrong time. But we even put poor planning guy in places I think that we wouldn't do that thing, but we can kind of see how poor planning guy makes those terrible, just terrible decisions.
This mythical human that floats around out there, just kind of like those little angels on your shoulder, you know, and in TV shows. It's like, poor planning guy's telling you right now that it'd be a great idea to, I don't know, get your tires rotated before you needed to, have a big meeting. And, oh, by the way, you got to walk now because your truck is still on the lift in the shop. You're 6 blocks from where you need to be, and you haven't eaten yet. So grabbing some queso on the way, spilling queso on yourself, and then realizing that they called you and the truck is ready to go back and get the truck before the meeting. Like, it's just things like that just fall into place. Like, it doesn't even have to be something that happens. It would just be like, here's what I'd like to do. Now, we've both been guilty of actually forming the necessary components of being poor planning guy. It actually has happened many times, and we'll call each other out for it, or at least we'll admit that we have fallen into poor planning guy's, mode of operation. But yeah, yes, I can picture it now. It was hot. It was your wedding day. We're passing past Lowe's. Glad we have the same exact memory of that, because I literally remember looking out the window going, yep, you're going to climb over that wall and walk, because the church is that way, so you're just going to climb over the wall.
Through a bunch of pine trees.
Yes. You've got pine needles in your hair, because you had hair at one point. Sorry, but it's reality.
Got to cut today, buddy.
but just crawling through the woods, showing up, not being dressed, and just the look on your poor wife's face.
He is the greatest source, poor planning guy, of relieving any kind of tension you have, or if you just want any ridiculous like movie-like scenarios. And just one minor one would be like, okay, you've got a wedding, like you got a meeting. Wedding was the original one, but you got a meeting, let's say at 10 o'clock. You leave your house at 9:45, and it takes 10 minutes for you to get to your office. I'm going to stop and get some breakfast, or I'm going to stop and fill up for gas. And you're like, what are you doing? Just the biggest brain flatulence you can ever think of. That's poor planning guy, in case we ever reference him. Did we tie a bow on that? Are people tired of us already? 14 minutes in. Who cares, right?
Why not? I think we're okay.
Okay. So the other one, why did I stack these the way I did? Because let's see. Yeah, two of these. The third one, I'm going to drop a bombshell on you. But
great.
All of these have to deal with tension. Okay, so I don't know if we want to say names. Do you want to, on the safe part? Just don't mention names.
I'd suggest we protect the innocent here. Yeah,
protect the innocent. I don't mind throwing myself under the bus. I mean, gosh forbid. I don't mind kicking you in the crotch, or Kevin, like kicking him under the bus. But the next one has to do with members of the opposite sex. Before I was married, okay, she didn't know, okay, and I might full well edit this one out if it's too tense, but
it's only tense if you make it tense, though. We'll get there.
Don't spoil it. That's the next one. And maybe this came from that. You know what? I'm thinking that maybe these are partner stories.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm yielding the floor to the bearded gentleman from the mid-cities because it's too tense for me to tell. And I will fill in the gaps of the she didn't know story. So my memory of this is that I was about 21, 22-ish, Mr. Dunham.
Sounds about right. Yeah. So, small town scenario. The member of the opposite sex that we were referring to also happened to have lived her entire life in the same town, worked at a local grocery store. Mr. Heath had encountered this young lady a few times over the years as being somebody that he was interested in, talking to, whatever.
Family friend. I think that's
family.
Safe.
Exactly. Yeah, y'all are basically family.
Back
Connection
then, yeah.
We won't discuss, but yeah. So from what I remember, there was a lot of excuses on your part to find a way to get to this grocery store on a regular basis, to try to speak to her, to try to talk to her, to try to kind of show interest.
Man. Yeah, just play it cool, man. Yeah, just be
exactly.
cool, man.
Yeah, just, coming in casual, I need this bag of chips and bucket of lard and some mayonnaise. Hey, I mean, all the things that you needed.
I didn't know you would be here. Yeah.
Really? You're working today? I mean, he had her schedule all memorized. But anyway, so over and over again, this would happen. And just, these air quotes being used here, chance encounters and whatnot. And if I remember, it all came to a head when you kind of said, all right, I'm going for it. Is that where the story picks up? Did I miss a step?
No, you did as great a job as you could. You
need to finish the story, though.
You went 7 strong innings from me. You threw 2-hit ball, and you only gave up a run. So you did your job. It's up to the bullpen now to close it out.
I remember sports.
Remember sports.
Sorry.
They used to happen. There was, hence the phrase she didn't know, there was a date. What I thought to be a date in between that. Mm-hmm. So I'm golden, right?
Yeah.
Went out.
She said yes.
At least I thought. Okay. And then certain overtures were made. And then, no, wait. What I did.
Well, you went out.
It was 20.
Right?
Yeah, almost. Golly.
It's been a while.
Yeah, we went out. We went
Thought
back.
It went well?
Yeah, thought it went well.
Mm-hmm.
And I either said something, I think the comedy over the years would have been if I would have made another romantic overture, moving in for the good night peck,
Yeah.
That's the nice, civil way to put it.
Sure.
And then she said something. Again, this is after I thought we had gone.
We've been out.
This since the dawn of time. This has been acknowledged as, if they do that, that's seen as a date.
Yeah, sure.
But I didn't find out. It was either me reading some body language, or me just. It totally hit me at once that, oh yeah, she probably read me, and then she said something like, she was talking about another guy, or she was saying something like, yeah, I'm just glad we could be the whole friends line. So
yes. Yeah. So the whole story came back to us being on the porch, having post-game show of this, maybe even the same day. I don't know. Could have been the same night.
I probably needed it that night. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. It was probably a call to arms, but yeah, it was she didn't know that we went out and that this was a thing. It was, oh yeah, JP and I went and had, I don't know, Mexican food, whatever y'all did. Movie.
It was
whatever.
actually, I think.
Okay.
At a conveyor belt, another reference.
Yes. We'll have to explain that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, she didn't know, like this month or two long process of maybe flirting, perhaps trying to make casual conversation, and finally pulling it out there and saying, let's go out.
Going for it. Just doing it. Yeah.
Yes.
And getting reciprocation, but then having the heart
either
crushed.
A friend's conversation, or it's sad that we don't remember that part because that's kind of important, but it all accumulates with, she obviously wasn't exactly interested in that way.
Yes.
And she didn't know that you were definitely interested.
And I think that might have repeated itself later with another. So maybe I didn't get it.
Right.
Maybe I refined my process later, but I was not Casanova. I was not Don Juan. So did we cover that enough?
I think we did. She didn't know.
Yeah, she just didn't know.
Now,
Okay.
the other ways we've discussed this, though, if I do remember, we have revisited this over the years, right?
Yes.
And other things that we have come up with was that, okay, is that on her or is that on you? Because nothing against this young lady, but there was a little bit of, like, she's not I don't know how to say this.
I'm not speaking now, ma'am, if you're listening.
I dug myself a hole.
I doubt she
might have been a little dingy. Is dingy an acceptable word these days? No?
Let's say back then we would have said that in a hypothetical situation similar to this, right?
Brilliant human being, great family, all those things. But I think at the time we were thinking, as one of the possible explanations for why it went the way it did, was, did she just not know? Or did she know, but the answer was no?
Yes.
I think that's how we kind of approached it.
A combination of both, like everything in life. She didn't see me that way.
Yes.
And then when it dawned on her, maybe it was like, okay, I've got to play this right. Okay. Anyway. Oh, okay. We're 3 for 3 on really laughing hard.
Yes, sir.
So
everyone enjoys our laugh track we're making here.
Heck with the other guys. It's now the Paul and JP show. I've rebranded the podcast here, maybe halfway. I don't know, maybe a third of a way through episode 20. Who knows?
JPPJ, yeah.
So,
PD, whatever we are, something.
Along with that, so we had our Mexican food stomping ground that we go to, the late great Molina's. There was another Italian place, the Greatness of Paisanos, which is still there, right? Just under a different roof, literally, right?
Yes. Same location, still an Italian food place. Those are the similarities, yes.
And I'm going to tell people from the start, this is a terrible story, okay? There's no huge comedic value. This morphs into more of the serious, deep part of life. But somehow, as we were wont to do in different porch situations, you and I were not eating queso that night, I guess. We were eating queso at the Italian place, whatever the Italian version of queso is.
Mounds of garlic bread.
Yeah.
Carbonated.
Alfredo and noodles in some combination, or marinara sauce. I forget what led up to it, but I didn't find out till maybe a couple years ago that you use this phrase still with the students that you teach in your capacity, that it's only tense if you make it tense. Somehow I think out of that previous story with the damsel that was not in distress, but just did not see my overtures, that in life, you decide how to make things awkward. I realize this being very ironic coming from the author of JP Moments in the previous couple of stories. Okay. So is that accurate that we just had this kind of deep prophetic conversation? Prophetic's probably not the right word, but just deep, lasting conversation that we decided, you know what? Here's what it was. You can basically say anything to anybody. It just depends on how you say it. ... It's only tense if you make it tense.
Yeah, it's all about the context. Yeah, I remember we were just rehashing current events, whatever was going on in our lives at the time. Who knows even what it was involving, but most likely jobs and women and other things, whatever we were trying to sort out in our lives at the time. But yeah, it's only tense if you make it tense, because it is all about how you take it. It is all about, now it matters how the other person takes it, or the other party, or the other people in front of you, but it's only tense if you in your mind decide that this is going to be tense. Because we decided, what could it be like if you had gone back and attempted, said, yes, I remember this now. As
okay,
we're going here.
I trust you with my life. I will trust you in this conversation too. I trust you. Okay.
I don't know that you ever did it, because I think we decided that, yes, it would be absolutely tense.
No, I did not.
But it would only be tense if you made it tense in that situation that you had put yourself, into. But it applies to so many different things. So I used to, when I first started teaching a few years ago, it was everything that was said by all of the teenagers that I was around every day in my student training world were, oh, that's awkward. Now it turned into, oh, that's awk, or it's whatever. They shorten everything. I say they. Yeah. Anyway, so everything's awkward. And this was several years ago. So I started applying our philosophy to fit that situation, where I'd say it's only awkward if you make it awkward. Whenever, guys were talking about, oh, so-and-so said something in class or whatever, or I didn't know what to say. It's only awkward if you make it awkward, which kind of applies to other situations too. Very similar to the tense versus tense thing. But yeah, it's only awkward if you make it awkward. And right now, I don't even have to finish the sentence in the program now. I just say it's only awkward if you, and then everybody kind of says you make it awkward.
It's fantastic, because maybe everybody comes to this realization. I don't know, maybe they have that self-discovery later, but it seems like you and I, at the ripe old age when our prefrontal cortex is really being formed, and we finally start getting life, and then you realize, oh, I really don't understand anything. I'm still a few years away from 30 where I really don't know that I just don't know anything. I mean, come on. We're co-hosting the show tonight. We might as well pat each other on the back. Who else is going to do it?
Right.
But I don't know. I think that was profound at that stage of our, not only friendship, but our development. Probably an obvious thing in life, but I don't think many people discover that. They have that awkwardness around them.
Now, not to say that I haven't made things awkward in lots of ways over the years, but exactly. I at least am aware of it. I think it helps to be aware of it. It helps to be, knowledgeable of the fact that, yes, this could be really tense. Whatever conversation you're about to have with someone you care about, somebody you have a tension thing with work at work with, or whatever's going on. But it really, if you go into this mindset, this could get really deep, I guess. But I'm not smart enough to go that deep, but if you go into a situation, whatever you're rocking into, if you've just decided that you're going to get a negative answer, a negative response, or whatever, you've already tried to map out the future for yourself in that situation. Now, not to say it won't go bad. It could go bad, but not to be Zig Ziglar or anything, but it really does matter what your mindset is going into it. Mm-hmm. You think it's going to be tense, and you think there's going to be a negative blowback. Now, sometimes being prepared for that, it's kind of like when I have to make a parent phone call I don't want to make related to work or whatnot. If I just decide that this is going to be an awful conversation, then my tone is probably going to change. Mm-hmm. But if I decide that I'm going to kill them with kindness, I'm going to give them the facts that I need to give them, I'm going to tell them what I need to tell them, and be responsible for my tone, and then allow them to vent if they need to vent, because sometimes people just need to vent.
Yeah.
They may not be mad at you. They may not be and a lot of people can't sit there and wear that. And I'm not perfect at it, but I've learned over the years how to at least tolerate it. We're okay. I'm going to let you tell me what you need to tell me. And then we're going to circle back around and try to, spin this thing positive again. But yeah, it can be really tense. If you just decide it's going to be tense and awkward and weird, then it's probably going to end up that way. So that's going to be your perception through the whole process.
Yes. And what works greatly, I love you, I love Mitch, I love all of y'all, but when Mitch is entered into the formula, he can pour gas on we're not one-on-one anymore. So it's remotely, he'll pour gas on it, or I'll call him. I forget even but Mitch accents these JP moments, AKA only tense if you make it tense. But I think I have both sides of that sometimes. I try to not make it tense, but sometimes things just come out very awkward. I've got a natural resiliency. I'm not going to give up on some things. I'll ask certain questions. Back then with the member of the opposite sex, hey, why not? Shoot your shot right now.
Yeah, that's what they say now. Yeah.
Why not? And that begats those stories. So there's something in there that a psychologist feels like good therapy. Shout out to the mental health episode 14, by the way, support going to a counselor. So it just feels like, thank you, Paul. You've let me voice I don't know why I'm talking in this golf voice, but so that was good. Not the huge chuckles, but more deep. But that's what you do on a porch. You just sit around and shoot the bull. So, speaking of only tense when you make it tense, I have a situation to bring up with you from back in high school. Okay. The look he's shooting me, folks. I can't even look at him in the eye in the screen. What? And I'm being fair here. It's you and me, okay? Just to trust tree, brother. Trust tree, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
The Gatorade story from high school. We can laugh about it now. We're just having two buddies. Do you want, again, this story would be, I'll admit it, maybe a little better with Mitch because we're all running buddies in high school, but Gatorade story from high school. Want me to tell it, or do you go ahead? Since I'm blindsiding Paul with this, so I'll let him. And then I'll fill in the funny made-up details, too.
So, we're trying to... I don't know which year this was. You may remember which year it was. I don't know which
Junior or senior year. Junior or senior. It had to be one of those
one of the two. Yeah. Making a playoff run in basketball. As was custom, when you make the playoffs, which football was accustomed to doing that, go Tigers. Tigers never quit. It became... At a point, we started trying to give Gatorade because it wasn't something we had all the time. We didn't have Gatorade access all the time for players and stuff. It was all just water, right? So once we got through we're into the playoffs. I think it was maybe around the holidays. I don't know, somewhere, we're kind of getting basketball season rolling. Guess it wasn't playoff time yet, but anyway.
Yeah, I remember it being at our gym.
It was at our gym.
Yeah, practice probably.
Yeah. So anyway, coach wanted to make sure you guys were hydrated because maybe the guys were sick or something. I don't know. And so we had this Gatorade.
Do you mind adding the backstory, the roles on the team? Most people listening probably know us, but just for the sake of the listener in the future popping in and listening.
Yeah, my roles from what, 7th grade all the way through with basketball was keep stats or keep score. Take care of the water, take care of the towels. I was the manager, and later on, I guess you'd say student trainer. I had a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of understanding of how to put a Band-Aid on, things like that. So, and
it's what you do now. So it was perfect launching ground, springboard.
Those are my training grounds. Yeah, for sure. So those are my training times. But, so I was challenged with a task. We had a cooler. It was a 5-gallon cooler. It wasn't very big, but we needed to make Gatorade. And coach said, "Hey, while we're doing this drill, can you make Gatorade? I'm going to surprise them, give them Gatorade after the practice." Okay, sure, coach. I got you. That was a regular occurrence. There was a problem to be solved. Coach Curtis or Coach Stone or Coach Jensen, somebody just go handle this. And they could rely on me. I was radar, like MASH, right? I would just go do it. Or I'd already done it, one of the two. There were some stories on that too. But anyway, I'm looking around and we did not have anything to stir the Gatorade with. It was customary to put a little bit of hot water in to help it dissolve. I don't know that we had any ice. Maybe we had some ice nearby. And I was trying to get the goo out of the bottom of the junk. I had no big stir stick or whatever. We had one of those at football. It broke. I don't know. But this was over at basketball at the gym. Didn't have anything to stir. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to wash my hand and arm really well so that I can mix this up and accomplish my task here. Because I couldn't turn it upside down. I had no other way to stir it. I wasn't going to use a clothes hanger because I couldn't find, I thought of all these things. I went through a progression of steps trying to figure out how to, as hygienically as possible, stir this Gatorade goop out of the bottom of this. Now, in more modern times, I've got more equipment available to me at my disposal. I was unprepared for this. I did not know this was going to happen on this day.
This was the mid-'90s. So you had to make do.
I did what I had to do. I jumped in there. I did wash my arm off. We didn't have hand sanitizer back then, but it was washed thoroughly. And I accomplished the Gatorade. Now, I don't remember what happened next.
Well, you left out a huge details. Fill in what the accomplished means.
What?
You stirred it. You stirred it with your arm.
I stirred it.
You stirred the Gatorade with your arm. And what
mission accomplished. Gatorade was good. Everybody enjoyed it.
What I remember is the great Joe Reynolds came in, and I think he instigated it. And it might have been our junior year because I think Sean Barchard was there, right?
Yeah,
because he was he was a great old. I don't know, just fog kind of blips. Hey, this what happens? You get north of 40.
Yeah,
but I just remember somebody saying it, and it was just so merciless how it spread, and then they just,
Arm-aid.
You were just the object of, it wasn't ridicule. It was just like, yeah, what are you doing? I'm not drinking that. I saw him stirring it with his arm.
Mm-hmm.
So.
There you go.
Is that
I did what I had to do. Have I done it since then? Might be a better question. Is that the question you're asking?
I wasn't thinking about it.
Where that was required, and I have mission accomplished. I've put the banner up on the aircraft carrier stating Gatorade available to be consumed, stirred however necessary, in whatever clean manner I had available to me at the time. But as opposed to having syrup run out of the bottom of the jug, which is a giant pet peeve of mine.
Okay. I might take the syrup.
Sports medicine.
But again, you're not you're kind of a hairy guy. You weren't worried about the hair getting mixed in, and I'm pantomiming this now.
I was less hairy then, but
okay.
Yeah, I suppose that is a concern. I am understanding where you're coming from on that. I had to stir it. What was I going to do? I had to provide I had the task at hand. I had to throw it out there. Yes, some arm hair might have ended up in the Gatorade. But if nobody had ever made a big deal about it, y'all would have enjoyed the Gatorade and never been any wiser.
Thank you for yeah. Go ahead.
I should say there was probably a time where the tables were turned related to a certain substance found in water bottles on the way home from some sort of game. Do you remember this?
Was this basketball?
This was basketball. Same time frame.
I was the stat guy on that team. That was our sophomore year.
Oh, okay.
Because
so this was before that.
Nerdy JP always loved sports, and
that's right.
Yeah,
you did
we did not partake. We were good little Christian boys at the time.
Well, I didn't even know about it until we got back. Yeah. I'm cleaning the water bottles out the next day after a road trip to a basketball game. And I'm like, these things smell weird. Like as I would normally do, I would clean them out and get them ready for the next game. These things smell weird. And at this point, I'd never faced alcohol in my young years at that point.
Thankfully.
And I took it into Coach. I said, Coach, I don't know what this is. This really stinks. Like, what is this smell? And he goes, yeah. And then I gained a nickname for a few years. 5-0.
Oh yes.
Because I totally would have just washed it out and not said anything. if I knew what it was. I honestly had no idea what was in there. There's some sort of clear liquor. I don't know what it was, vodka or something.
Well, to be kinder to you, as I should come across more supporting, outside of the Gatorade store, I think I have been. What I think they did was we stopped at a gas station and they stole it. They stole whatever that said product was and then put it in the water bottles, which they weren't smart enough to empty it out. Anyway, then 5-0 busted them.
Yeah. So, Bubba was the call sign.
I never connect.
Wherever.
I remember that, forgot it. Now I'm remembering it again. But the story I was going to say when you talked about the arm hair in the Gatorade, what's a little arm hair going to hurt, you know? My days in food service, people would be amazed.
Oh, gosh.
What they eat and don't know it.
I know what you're thinking, but you're not going to tell that one on the air, I'm sure. The one of pizza dough.
Oh, no.
Anyway.
No, not that. Well,
yeah.
I don't think that ever happened. That was just talking about. We reference that in the episode 11, the Mazio's episode, but should do one food serve. I guess we kind of did that already though with that Mazio's episode, but tying the bow on that part is that food service, man, a lot of stuff happens to your food, so people shouldn't get so high and mighty about a little arm hair in your Gatorade. See what I did, Paul? I tied it all.
You did.
Back together.
Full circle. Yeah. So
did I choose wisely on my 5 big JP and Paul stories? Did I leave any out?
Man, I was trying to when you kind of sent out the call for what we might talk about. I can't think of anything major. I'm sure I will after we're done here, but we may have to have an addendum later on. But man, there's been a lot. I mean, we haven't told the Big Ben story fully, have we? I don't think we've told that top start to finish. That could be a good one for the executive committee one day. But
yeah, we need to do that. And coming up here in minutes, you'll understand why I reference the summer vacation. But just having like Texas to-do list or Texas road trip stories that we've had, or like a Texas bucket list. I want to do maybe a series. Heck, it's podcast. It's infinite. You can do whatever you do. I want to do a series on what you do in Texas. But that ranked up there with just not totally dismiss people if you're wondering what he was talking about. But the executive committee of Mitch, Paul, and me went to Big Bend. Now would be about 3 summers ago, right? So that'd have been, there you go. He's got the mug the sticker, I guess, to put on the Yeti. Amazing. Just going out there and experiencing that part of Texas, just what that part of the state is. Just, I mean, we didn't even do everything that you could do, but Santa Elena Canyon, going to Terlingua. I was reluctant to go to the Starlight Cafe, right? Remember that?
Lounge?
Yeah.
Lounge, I think. Yeah.
But, and then I referenced this earlier, so kind of tying it all back together, Paul made, and this was referenced in the Texas Porch trailer. So 20 episodes later, it pays off if you're a really dedicated Texas Porch listener, that Paul just impromptu makes cherry cobbler. Who does that? Quoting myself, I think I said in the trailer. But for those wanting to know more about Paul, he's a master cook as well. Cherry cobbler. But I think that's a bigger deal than I think you think it is a big deal about yourself.
It's all thanks to my raising in Scouts and my mom being a home economics teacher and just having some amazing cooks in my family. It was just, plus I like to eat like a lot. So eating is great, but I like cooking is therapy to me. So I can have a rough day, and as long as I've got the ingredients and I don't get frustrated with that part of it, I'll cook a meal or I'll cook something that's decent. Now I don't make gourmet meals every time I step in the kitchen for sure, but it's chicken nuggets and fries a lot at our house, but that's just how it is. But you know, it's just fun for me. So I enjoy it. But yeah, cobbler, thanks to my raising in Boy Scouts, where we cooked everything from scratch for the most part, and we learned that way and cook on the campfire that way. So, you know, once you can do that, stuff in the kitchen's easy, you know, so you kind of learn the hard way first, I guess, which was the point. But it's yeah, I like to eat, and I like stuff done a certain way, so it comes out well if I can do it myself, or you know, offer that to somebody else.
Another one of our catchphrases: food is fun. So, and I can't wait for that next cobbler. We'll have that sometime soon. Sure. So the soon-to-be produced intro, got that booked this week. I got somebody to surprise coming up here soon. It'll be a slick. 20 episodes. You're starting to get serious about your pod, but Now for this week in Texas sports and history, thanks to the Texas State Historical Association for some of these factoids. Are you ready to do a two-man operation, P. Diddy? Just you and me. I think we've carried it for this time. I think we can finish it off. But this week in Texas sports and history, July 3rd of 1984, Natural Bridge Caverns, the largest known caverns in Texas, was open to the public. It was discovered in March of 1960 by 4 spelunkers who were students at St. Mary's University. I mentioned this, and I thought this was a good factoid for the segment because going down I-35 like we did, I guess it seemed like all the time. It seemed going to Austin, going to San Antonio, you've got the connection to Central Texas, the hill country that we'll elaborate on here in a second with another note. But always seeing those signs for the caverns. Kind of wanted to as a kid, but I know I will never go into one of those, mainly because physically challenged. Can't fit a big, how big an old boy are you? You can't fit me in one of those, and might be a touch of claustrophobia mixed in there too. You ever been there? Because you're and even with your sister, I guess y'all are always down there too, but it seems like you've probably been in one of those.
Yeah. It's one of those things too. Yeah. Every time we go to Austin or San Antonio, you see those signs. I feel like they start like north of Waco, and they just, and in both directions coming up from the south as well, 100 more miles to blah, 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 or, whatever. So we always pass by and always thought it would be neat, but like, family road trips, we're trying to get home or trying to get where we're going. So we never stopped, but we did stop there with a scout troop one time, and it was fun. It was actually good. It was, from what I remember, it was more of a walking. Now I've done crawling, spelunking, caving tours where, you're like with bats and stuff. That's pretty, it's different. If you're claustrophobic, it's not a good place to be. But those were fun. It's very touristy. So it's a tourist trap. You walk in, there's stairs and stuff, and they light it up and they turn the lights off and show you how dark it is. And surprise, it's a cave. It's dark. So
I will never know.
Yeah, you're okay. I just explained it. So
I feel like I've been there. So July 3rd of 1884, the City County Hospital, the first public hospital in Central Texas, opened in Austin. July 4th, a big day in Texas history. Can I say one thing? Happy birthday, America. Coming up on July 4th. I just had to get that out of there. I don't know how insincere that sounded, but July 4th of 1845, the convention to consider the joint resolution of the U.S. Congress proposing the annexation of the Republic of Texas to United States assembled in Austin. Thomas Jefferson Rusk was elected president of the convention. James H. Raymond was secretary. By a vote of 55-1, the delegates approved the offer of annexation of Texas.
Texas.
I thought in the loose research I did with this, raising my hand now, can I make a confession?
Sure.
I don't really understand everything with that.
I don't either.
Okay. Just confessing it for everybody. Like,
I don't want to pretend like I do, but I don't know.
I've learned more hosting a Texas podcast and studying some things, but even we've referenced her 3 or 4 times now, the great Miss Laws in our Texas history class in junior high. I kind of know the loose details, but if I had somebody from North Dakota, just picking that state out of the blue, if they said, hey, don't you know, tell me about Texas,
Oh, geez,
I would, Davy Crockett, Alamo. But I know once I read it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I've got it. I've got the timeline down. But there's so much to get to. That's my excuse. Anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm not alone too much on that. You made me feel better. You assuaged my fears there.
No, I mean, I remember a few things, but putting all the pieces together and like producing that whole concept would be difficult. Yeah, not knowing it all.
Because we're Texas. Dang it.
Yeah. We're right.
New branding, the Texas Porch. We don't know about Texas. You see that on the billboards now?
Yeah, we can do it.
July 4th of 1910, and speaking of learning more about Texas, in researching these notes for this week in Texas sports and history, the Galveston Giant, Jack Johnson, TKO James Jeffries in the fight of the century. And what that did was that finally recognized him as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. He had won the Negro heavyweight championships in 1903. That's the way it's written there. Jim Jeffries was the reigning white heavyweight champion. He refused to cross the color line and fight him. So Johnson, so that's 1903, right? He had won the Negro Heavyweight Championship, but 5 years later, he had to wait 5 years.
Wow.
Defeated this other guy from Australia, Tommy Burns. So he technically won the World Heavyweight Boxing Championship then in 1908. So he got 1903, 1908. So even then, he wasn't officially recognized as the champion. But in this week, July 4th of 1910, it was in Nevada, Reno, he defeated Jim Jeffries, who he had stepped out of retirement to become what they called back then the first of the White Hopes, recruited to try to challenge Johnson to take the title away from him. But one of the great icons that I know is probably recognized by the smart people out there, but I think most people don't know about how great Jack Johnson is. And the number of times I go down to Galveston seems like, heck, 2, sometimes 3 times a year. Man, Jack Johnson was a bad Mother Hubbard. And so, yeah, he became the first black heavyweight champion back in 1910. Could you imagine what he had to go through and just what kind of badass he was back then?
Well, yeah, just the fact that, I mean, it didn't matter what he did, no matter what he accomplished, there was a certain segment that was not going to acknowledge that whatsoever. If he even got the opportunity to get on the books for, it's kind of like what I've heard it described as before, it's like a novelty act. Yeah. The black guy boxed too. He was really good, but they didn't get the respect because they weren't recognized. It's sad.
Just fascinating. I want to learn more about that aspect of our Texas sports history. Obviously, as mentioned, July 4th, a big day in Texas history. In 1904, July 4th, the first regular passenger train passed through the new railroad town of Kingsville, where we have both been a few times. It sparked a civic celebration as the St. Louis, Brownsville, and Mexico Railway completed construction of its first 142 miles of track from Robstown to Brownsville. Wow. Back then, I mean, you think that is 116 years ago coming up, on Saturday. And the way we have evolved since then, that was monumental back then. And the things we complain about now, the old Louis C.K. bit about plane travel, the things we complain about now and don't appreciate. Back then, I can tell you they appreciated going through that and what they had to go from, I guess, horse and buggy to, hey, we can get on a train. Wow, that's I bet they thought they were in the future then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Can you just imagine it eliminates so many problems. And a lot of they probably weren't exactly like, air conditioner. They weren't luxury liners exactly at that point, but just the fact that you could transport goods and people along that path, because that is way down south of anything, back then. That was so far. I mean, Kingsville and that whole area down there is just there between there and Brownsville, man. That's a long span on a nice paved, highway now. But man, back then having a line of connection that wasn't, over the land, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, probably both of us, you more so with sports in college and me broadcasting for OLET. Probably been there a handful, 5-7 times maybe, including some recent broadcast ventures too. But man, that is a long stretch. And anyway, big deal, July 4th, 1904. July 4th, 1980, Nolan Ryan strikes out Cesar Geronimo for his 3,000th career strikeout. Here's a biggie, Paul. July 4th of 1995, Lukenbach, Texas, where everybody is somebody, was the site of Willie Nelson's 4th of July picnic.
Nice.
It kind of surprised me that was the first one, I guess. In 1995, I guess they just had them since then, or is that more sporadic?
Yeah, it's been off and on, I think. They're not always there anymore, I don't think.
No.
It's moved around. It's been in Austin. It's been lots of places, if I understand right.
Okay.
But I think it was just one of those deals that just kind of all came together, and it may be more infamous now more famous now than it was at the time, but that was certainly a big deal. And man, just having Willie and his friends, that's what they always say.
One of us two is about to go to Lukenbach, Texas, maybe even as soon as it's July 4th weekend. But the Pat Green, Corey Murrow concert. We got tickets to it in Luckenbach, but it got canceled because of worldwide pandemic. I forgot if I even told you about
No, I didn't know. Man, that's
any
awesome.
part of this trip, but
that's what would have been great.
Yeah, but at least I want to go there and buy a shirt.
Sure.
Get a Luckenbach shirt, but really, really looking forward to going there. And near there, our trip last year passed. We obviously went to Fredericksburg, but I guess, yeah, it's a trip. But we went to Robert Earl Keen's 4th of July concert in Kerrville, and that's canceled this year too. So I knew once I saw that they'd probably cancel the Pat Green, Corey Murrow show. That was the night before that. It would have been on the 3rd, but there's an elephant preserve down there. We've got tickets for that.
Okay.
And Mrs. Texas Porch is accompanying me on this trip. So she's done fantastic planning and researching. But Enchanted Rock, we're going to hike Enchanted Rock.
It's a big giant granite mountain, granite dome.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And they've set up a lot of distancing protocols. Only so many people can come in there. They space it out pretty nice, but can't wait. The brother-in-law, his wife, and Mrs. Texas Porch were all sharing a Airbnb or VRBO, whichever one, and staying in Fredericksburg coming up to get a little slice of Texas, Paul. That's what people do on the Texas Porch.
As the great Kodiansky, coworker extraordinaire, head trainer, Flower High School says, he's from Kerrville. It's God's country.
Yeah, buddy, Texas. So this week in Texas show history, July 5th of 1998, Texas Porch JP started his first job working at Mazzio's Pizza in Commerce, Texas. If you want a full story on that, do you ever go back and listen to episode 11, Mazzio's Mafia? Okay, so
yeah, good stuff.
A
lot of those things I didn't know because I wasn't a part of the mafia. So
really,
yeah, a lot of those stories were not ever brought up along the way somehow.
Yeah, and what made me, I don't know, I'm still finding my voice in this whole podcast thing. I've done broadcasting. I've still got a full-time job I want to protect, going back to when and if we play football again. But there's a lot of stuff we didn't say. So that at least is a good tease for in the future. The things you do and it wasn't me.
Yeah.
But I had somebody comment that I am friends and Facebook friends with. He said, man, we did all that same stuff at our pizza place when I was in college. And he's a lot younger than me. So I didn't feel.
Why is it the way it is? We've heard guys on local radio stations too that, that spent pizza life, that did life in pizza. It's just insane how much stuff goes on. I don't know what it is. I guess any restaurant, like we've all talked about, is something about what goes on back behind the curtain in the kitchen is just what is happening?
I'm telling you, when and if the book comes, Mazzio's is getting a chapter or two. July 6th of 1923, the Dr. Pepper Company was incorporated in
Waco?
No, it's Dallas.
Oh, Dallas.
That threw me too. At first, I would have thought it would be Dublin or Waco. It was first made in Waco. What's that? About 40 years earlier, 1885. So there's this guy, Wade Morrison, owns a corner drugstore. This just off the top of my head. And he had this pharmacist named Charles Anderson. So he'd fill his prescriptions on the side, and then he'd serve the Dr. Pepper to customers. And he would fiddle it around with a lot of different combinations. And then one combination that was Dr. Pepper proved very popular. Named the beverage after Dr. Charles T. Pepper. I guess I did not know that. A physician and pharmacist for whom Morrison worked for way up in Virginia. That ain't Texas. That's Virginia. But today, Dr. Pepper is an operating company based in Plano, up your neck of the woods. A collection of Dr. Pepper memorabilia forms the core of the Dr. Pepper Museum, and Free Enterprise Institute was opened in Waco in 1991. But if I remember, and this, since you know a lot about a lot, you and Lamar have this innate talent about knowing a lot about a lot of things. In Dublin, which I've been to that Dr. Pepper Museum in Dublin, they don't have words. They will not have words, Dublin and the Waco Dr. Pepper people, right? They split because the formula is a little different, something with the real cane sugar.
Yeah, big falling out. It was basically a licensing and recipe kind of thing because Dublin still wanted to produce it, but Dr. Pepper said, no, you're going to have to, follow this. If you're going to have the Dr. Pepper name on it, no matter what kind of sugar, we're not going for that. You're going to have to pay all this money for this. You're not a bottling agency of ours anymore, I think is how it shook down. Now, we bashed on Waco. We spent a whole long piece of segment in an earlier episode kind of bashing on Waco and all the weird things that happened there. But honestly, that's a good place we need to go sometime.
Yes.
We need to – this Texas Sports Hall of Fame is there. More on that another time too. Our connection to that with my organization. And then Dr. Pepper Museum, we got to do that too. We'll avoid the silos, but we'll find other things to do.
That's for the women to do.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I'm living almost carb-free life right now. But I'm telling you, let this podcast be a record of my last will and testament that if I had one more drink for the rest of my life and I had to have a last drink, like I was like Andy Dufresne, I was wrongfully in prison, and I had the death penalty, one more meal, Dr. Pepper. Sponsor opportunity, Dr.
Same category.
This week in Texas sports, July 7th, 1960, former Rockets big man Ralph Sampson born in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Second straight week we've had a big Ralph reference. I think he was number one pick in the draft. Last week in Texas sports history, July 8th of 1911, the last known San Jacinto veteran Alfonso Steele died in 1911. So it's barely been 100 years since the last Battle of San Jacinto veteran died. But November of 1835, he was a Kentucky native. That ain't Texas. But he joined Captain Daggett's company of volunteers bound for Texas to aid in the Revolution. The company disbanded shortly after arriving at Washington on the Brazos. He worked in a hotel and grist mill until the Declaration of Independence, then joined a company intending to go to the aid of Travis at the Alamo. Also, finally, last but not least, July 8th of 1935, Aggie great and legend John David Crow was born, former athletic director at Texas A&M, and their first Heisman Trophy winner. He died in 2015. That is one of those icon of icons in Aggie lore. Paul?
Is that what they do? Okay.
We did it, Paul.
We did. First one.
Another show that the people crave. We are finished with our first of our series, Get to Know, first installment, Paul and JP. If you made it this far, God bless you.
Absolutely. It's been in the making for about 4 decades. So
we've had a lot of practice, so only talking an hour. I think we let them off easy.
Not bad.
All right, we will talk to you when we talk to you. I'll update you on the trip. I'll send you some pics from the top of Enchanted Rock and petting elephants. I'm gonna ride an elephant.
Elephant up to Enchanted Rock. That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's the. All right, brother. Take care, man.
Take care, brother.
We'll see you. That's the Texas Porch, available on Apple, Spotify, Google, TuneIn, and many more. You can always get it at the Mitch Design, TexasPorch.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Texas Porch Pod, and Facebook, Texas Porch Pod as well. Have a great rest of this night or day. God bless you, and God bless Texas. Talk to you next week out here on the Texas Porch.
Texas
Sports. Yeah, Davy Crockett,
Stuff.
Alamo. So a quick post-pod editorial note. When you get north of 40, your brain slips. But the Mazio's note that I mentioned just a few moments ago, my first job was actually 1996. It was right after high school. So July 5th, 1996. I know you would have lost sleep at night. But anyway, all about those details. Also, very Inception-like here, real-life poor planning guy just producing a wonderful pod with one of my besties. Real life poor planning guy example. Got a trip to go in the morning and I haven't washed clothes. Poor planning guy. And I was going to go up to the gym to walk on the treadmill. So yeah, there you go. Real life example. Could think of another one. What are you doing? Still listening? I don't know. Listen to more episodes. Texas Porch. Bye.